a business called Downsizing with Care. And under normal circumstances, we help retirees and NDIS clients declutter and downsize. And I'm holding this session today so that we can talk about ideas around where things can be donated and where things can be sold now that the large op shops are closed, now that we've got social distancing restrictions in place, and you know that this situation looks like it's going to continue for some time now. So we'll get straight into it. I want to make this as useful as possible. If you have any questions, of course, please ask them at the end there. Big charities, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, they have stated on their website and you know, put signs up in front of their stores that they're no longer accepting donations. And it's not just the big charities, it's also antique dealers. You know, they're struggling in their businesses, on their Facebook pages. One of the large antiques dealerships in Canberra, they posted that they are at risk of going out of business. So, of course, you know, depending on your personal comfort level and also the social restrictions in place, I would encourage everyone to, you know, of course, support those antique dealers and so, but I don't think that they're a viable way of selling collectibles anymore in the current circumstances. They're not wanting to take on that much extra stock at the moment. And so, you know, what do we do under these current circumstances? Well, the good news is that there are a few options on the table of what we can do, of places that we can still take things and places that we can still either donate to or sell things to. In Canberra, of course, we're very lucky. We have the Green Shed. And for those who may not know it intimately, I end up going to the Green Shed, either taking stuff of ours or things of clients to the Green Shed. And the Green Shed is a shop, a very large shop and warehouse associated with the waste transfer stations. So there's a Green Shed at Mitchell Tip and a Green Shed at Mugger Lane Tip. And so the Green Shed will take a huge variety of things, you know, anything from hardware to, you know, things in the backyard. You know, if it's at all usable by anyone, chances are they'll take it. They can be a bit picky around furniture because furniture is, I guess it takes up a fair amount of room, and there's a glut of furniture. Under normal circumstances, it's also really difficult to decide what to do with furniture that's showing its age. So if you've got furniture that's, say, you know, 30 years old, 40 years old, that's showing its age, you can try to get rid of that for free in other ways, but the Green Shed may or may not take it. Otherwise, they take almost anything you could imagine, you know, from the house or the garden, as long as it's in clean, usable condition. And, you know, sometimes if it's not in that clean condition, they'll take it. They got something really interesting this week. It came up on my Facebook feed that they got a Doctor Who TARDIS that somebody had dropped off to them this week. So, yeah, take all sorts. One other way that we often use under normal circumstances is just listing things for free on Gumtree. And, you know, Gumtree, as with the other websites, have huge warnings plastered on their website. They say, oh, we, you know, make sure that you facilitate contactless sales. And obviously, you know, you have to soul search about whether that's in your comfort zone. But I figure as long as you're leaving things outside and perhaps wiping down if you're concerned, then the person can come and collect it from outside your home, and you know, you don't have to be within close distance to that person. So listing things for free on Gumtree is definitely an option. My favourite option at the moment is probably Give It. Now, Give It got a lot of publicity around the time of the bushfires. Give It is Givit. You remember when they were having the news coverage of the bushfires and saying, oh, don't give goods, please give money. But if you are going to give goods, make sure you do it through a platform like Give It. And Give It is amazing. And I'm going to do a separate video on Give It and just showing the ins and outs of Give It. But what Give It does is it lists the organisation that needs the item, what items they're looking for, and usually a little bit about who the item's going to help. So for example, when I was looking at Give It this morning, there was a listing, lots of listings for linen to help bushfire victims, single mums, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, it was either that they wanted it in Queensland or New South Wales or Canberra. The Red Cross in Canberra facilitates a lot of handling of donations through Give It, and they've still got current listings active. So that's a definite possibility. The other really interesting possibility with Give It is the idea of a listing that might be in Queensland or a listing that might be in New South Wales, for example, and sending the items. Now, again, you know, social distancing requirements have to be taken into consideration. And I, for one, don't feel so comfortable about going to the post office every day to post things that, you know, I want to donate, you know, to say Queensland or New South Wales. But a lot of people really do like the idea of supporting fire victims and setting up houses that have been burned in the fire, setting up, you know, when people are setting themselves up again in a new house. So one way to, I guess, facilitate that and to get around, you know, using and standing in a queue at the post office is the idea of using a service like Sendle. And I might do another separate thing about Sendle and just about packing techniques and things. But Sendle is spelled S-E-N-D-L-E. Don't worry, I'll send through a list of these resources and websites to those attending the chat. And also I'll put these on my website so that anybody watching this chat after the fact, you can go to my website and you can see the link for Sendle and the link for Give It and so on. Anyway, Sendle is an amazing service that takes unused courier van space and, you know, unused courier capacity. And so you bundle it up like you would a normal, you know, box that you're posting at the post office. And instead of putting a stamp on it or writing out the address on it, you print out and you stick a label on it. Sendle, the platform, allows you to print the labels. And then, so you've got your box, you stick your label to it, and then you put it outside your front door. And 24 to 48 hours later, a courier will come, you know, assuming you've done everything as far as paid and printed the label correctly. The courier will come 24 to 48 hours later and spirit away your parcel. You'll get an email saying your parcel has been picked up. And then when the parcel has been delivered the other end, you'll get an email saying the parcel has now been delivered. So if it is something that you're interested in doing to support bushfire victims, you know, single mums, all the, you know, great causes that want particular items, then that is one option for how to get the items to them. Another wonderful organisation that you know, might be worth considering at the moment is the Remote Op Shop project, because of course people are used to dropping clothes off at the op shop. The Remote Op Shop project takes clothes and other essential items for stocking Indigenous community run op shops. So I think that's an amazing cause. And of course, depending on the weight of the item, Australia Post might be cheaper or Sendor might be cheaper. You know, as with anything, it's always good to, you know, have to do it once rather than have to do it in dribs and drabs. But, you know, if you've got a bulk lot of clothes that you want to declutter, well, you could take them to the green shed as one option. But for people with limited mobility or something like that, Sendor can be a great option. Also, for particular specific items, eBay and Gumtree remain a really viable way of, I guess, getting some money back for the items that people are decluttering. And, you know, the high value items still remain things like electronics and old SLR cameras and lenses and things like that. But yeah, it's always really interesting to see what sells and what doesn't sell. I mean, you know, if in doubt, I guess we can always search Gumtree and eBay and, you know, see if similar items are selling. One thing which I found out about in the last year was that doilies and lace tablecloths are big in demand for, you know, again, maybe not at the moment, but, you know, when I was looking, brides who are, you know, planning more bohemian weddings want to have lace tablecloths and doilies and so for their wedding day. And there are services that are, you know, specifically selling particular lace tablecloths, particular doilies, particular glassware and things for these weddings and things. So, I mean, you know, I guess look hard enough for it and there's a market for most things. But yeah, I mean, you know, obviously you don't want to have to be selling everything for 50 cents, $1, whatever it is. I like to keep a limit of $50 in the back of my mind for when we sell something. But electronics, definitely. Camera gear, definitely. And, you know, some people like the idea that things can find a good home and that they like the idea that the lace doilies can be reused or that the instruments can be donated to Indigenous communities, musical instruments can be donated to Indigenous communities and so on and so forth. So, but in Canberra, the green shed, definitely. And I guess to have a good look at Give It. I really, really recommend having a good look at Give It and see if there's a way that you can connect, you know, the things that you're decluttering with some of the things that people who are recovering from the bushfires that we don't hear much about at the moment might also be able to use. Okay, so that's what to do with some of the things. The next point is what to do now that it's difficult to find help, because a lot of people are wanting to, I guess, do the right thing, socially isolate. We stopped working with clients, you know, as soon as the instructions started to be given. You know, we didn't even try to class ourselves as an essential service or any such thing, because our clients are very high risk and, you know, we of course didn't want to take that risk. So some people are finding that using friends and family, you know, just one-on-one, they're comfortable with. Some people no. Some people, you know, with very serious lung problems and things don't feel like they can take the risk and feel like, yes, they've got to declutter and downsize all by themselves and, you know, can't get any help to do so. Well, you know, I guess the flip side of that is, I guess, when it comes down to it, the person making the decisions has to be the householders anyway. So, you know, yes, it's always nice if we can get help, and by all means, you know, feel free to use friends and family in, I guess, areas that you won't be in, or whatever it is. But I guess, you know, not to get too caught up on having to do it all yourself at the moment is one, I guess, perspective, because at the end of the day, the decisions all come back to, you know, the homeowner anyway. And so I guess not to get intimidated by that, and to, I guess, flex that decision-making muscle. And, you know, if we can, you know, I guess, strengthen that decision-making muscle, it does get easier as the process goes on. The other point that I wanted to raise was about a lot of people are having a hard time with anxiety and depression at the moment. Trish, I'm sure you've noticed that with, you know, some of your clients as well, that any existing mental health concerns seem to be bubbling up to the surface, and that people have probably had a few hard knocks prior to now. One lady in the video just now, who kindly contributed, she mentioned that, you know, she was already, you know, under social isolation, and you know, because she lived alone and things. And you know, a lot of the people that we talk to, they've had a few hard knocks in their life prior to coming to this point where, you know, the rest of the society is now experiencing social isolation and the fear of the unknown. Well, a lot of people have had a lot of experience in social isolation, fear of the unknown, health concerns, so on and so forth. And I guess I wanted to put it out there that it's okay to give yourself a break during this time as well. I think there's a lot of pressure on, well, why don't we make the most of this time? And a lot of pressure on, well, you know, what are you using your social isolation time to achieve? Well, I think it's okay not to have learned a new language, completely decluttered the house, all of that sort of thing, because, you know, there's other, life still goes on. You know, the ebbs and flows of daily life are still occurring. There are these additional pressures, there are these additional stresses. And of course, it's okay to, you know, take it as it comes, and to not build Rome within a day. And, you know, I mean, through these chats, I really hope that, you know, people can find some useful, helpful information that might help them along the way. But of course, Rome wasn't built in a day as well. And, you know, different people have, I guess, different underlying levels of clutter in their homes. I think the word hoarder is very much overused, but there is some research into hoarding that suggests that social contact and keeping a social outlet does improve a hoarding situation more so than just tackling the clutter itself. Of course, that's a necessary part of it too, but that the social outlet and, you know, maintaining social activities in whatever way people can, whether it's through phone, through, you know, Zoom meetings, whatever it is, can be a real benefit to, you know, other issues going on in their lives as well. So I guess the, you know, takeaway message from that sort of research is, in this time, I guess it behooves us to try to maintain our social outlets, and of course to try to reach out to friends and neighbours and so on who are socially isolated as well. My last, I guess, point that I wanted to make is that the people that seem to have the most success when they go about the downsizing, regardless of whether it's COVID-19, social isolation and restrictions, or whether it's just normal times, the people who seem to have the most success are the people who are able to do it systematically. And so even if we pick away at it bit by bit by bit, then, you know, to try to, I guess, not get distracted and not get unfocused. Either to work by category of item. So say, right, I'm going to deal with all of the clothes, and I'm going to, you know, deal with the clothes until they're more or less done. And then I'll move on to the books. You know, a lot of people like the Marie Kondo approach for that sort of thing. I'm not a Kondo, you know, religion follower, but you know, some people are, and they find that approach to work really well. And I also enjoy that aspect of it, working by categories. But some people, they find it easier to just work shelf by shelf and get the living room done, for example. And so if you're decluttering the living room, I guess to try not to get distracted by you know, doing the linen cupboard. Where I've noticed that people have the most success is where they, you know, focus space by space or category by category. And where I've noticed that people have this hardest time of things is where they get distracted and do a bit of the garage and a bit of the linen cupboard, and, you know, aren't able to, I guess, you know, work through each space as it goes along. And the big goal can cause people a lot of stress. So what I mean by that is that if you have the goal of, right, you know, I want to downsize everything once and for all so that my kids don't have to deal with it, or I want to downsize everything once and for all so that, you know, we can sell the home. Well, of course, those are great goals to have in mind, but that sometimes that goal can be a source of stress within itself. And some people approach the downsizing process, particularly, I imagine, if they've got other anxieties that are at play. People can approach the downsizing process as either an all or nothing sort of approach. And to try to knock off small goals can sometimes get people on the right track as well. So, you know, keeping the to-do list of 30 items, again, can be a cause of stress. One tactic to get around that is the idea of, okay, let me set the to-do list aside, and instead of ticking off, you know, each of these 30 items on my to-do list, well, why don't I put each item on the list as I finish it? So that's called a done list. So, you know, I love that, you know, even personally, for when I'm when I'm procrastinating on a project, I will definitely use a done list to, you know, celebrate the little achievements. So to set aside the big goal, to set aside the, you know, 30 item to-do list or 100 item to-do list, and to just choose one thing that you might do today. And so whether it's, you know, sort that shelf and those books on that shelf, and then, you know, with completely justifiably, you can write it on the list saying sorted books on shelf, and to collect the small achievements, because we don't always see the small achievements, particularly when it comes to downsizing and decluttering. So to collect those small achievements, I guess, gives people confidence, and gives people the ability to, gives people confidence, and it gives people clarity. I notice that when people, you know, start off with small achievements, that then it kind of opens up their peripheral vision a bit to where they can then get perspective and then get a bit more strategic after having knocked over those few small wins. So those were, I guess, some considerations for downsizing during this very unusual time. And, you know, I'd like to go into, in future videos, about more specifics about, for example, using Sendle, about using eBay, about using Gumtree, because it's, you know, people are afraid of those platforms, but they're actually quite straightforward once you get used to them and once you get familiar with the process. There's very few actual steps in the process. So in future weeks, we'll be going into, I guess, those sorts of topics, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about any aspect of the downsizing process. I'm going to, you know, stop hitting record and I will I'll unmute everyone's microphones, and feel free to share any comments, questions, observations, you know, whatever you're going through at the moment and whatever you'd like to know about at the moment. If you have any requests for future topics as well, of course, please let me know that as well. All right, well, thanks for listening, and I'll open it up for questions.